All right, welcome to Powered by Authenticity. I hope everyone's off to a great week and are gearing up for summer breaks and just having a great summer so far. I'm so excited to bring back Bryon Malang to our podcast. Bryon, how are you?
I'm doing great. Super happy. We're winding down the work week, but all good.
I know. And it's been one for the record books, too. Well, just to remind everybody, so Bryon's been on here. The title of that podcast was A View from the Captain's Chair, and it's one of our most popular episodes. And, Bryon, you and I have known each other for quite a while now. I think we met in 2011, maybe. And brought you on as project coordinator, and then we were able to reconnect in 2019, 2020 to have you help me with another project. So it's always great to get to speak with you, Bryon.
Well, I'm very grateful. Thank you, Emily, for bringing me on board again for another episode. And it's funny because when I think about that title, about the captain's chair, I'm thinking about my chair. I'm sitting and going, well, this chair is really well worn. There's been a whole lot of projects, a whole lot of fire drills. But the chair is definitely well ready for our next adventure. So it's definitely time to buckle up and ready for our next push.
All right, that's awesome. Well, why don't you remind everybody a little bit about yourself?
Absolutely. No, I'm very excited. Right now, I've been working in a program manager role and working also as a team lead within the project management space, still focused in many different aspects of healthcare, straddling both the private and public healthcare sector. And what's fun for me is when we joke about and talk about the captain's seat in that analogy to Star Trek. It's almost like now I'm kind of being removed from the enterprise and now more towards like at the base, and you're watching how things operate, and now you're kind of at a higher view. And I have a greater appreciation for the work that a lot of our project managers do, a lot of our project teams. And since I straddle still that line, it's been a unique challenge. And as we're already into mid-July, it's like, wow, what is the rest of the year going to bring us? Talk about different challenges, whether it's from security risks, from an IT perspective, budget risks, compliant risks. Interesting year, and later on the podcast when we talk about some sports, I'm excited about the Olympics coming up. Just a exciting time and an interesting time.
And I think you've gotten married since the last time you were here.
Yes, thank you. It's been now 10 months, so I'm very excited, very grateful, and can't believe it's already been 10 months.
Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
Awesome. I know it's so busy. 2024 is going by so fast. It truly is. Okay, you're familiar. We like to do an icebreaker here at the podcast. And you're a runner, which we're going to get into in a minute, but what's a favorite race that you've done? Do you have one?
One of my favorite races, this was back in 2018. In Colorado, it's in the Southwest Mountains. The town is called Evergreen, Colorado, which for many of you listening or watching on replay, definitely look up this town. It is a beautiful town, not too far from Denver. And it's not one of those long drives to the mountains. It's so pretty in terms of, in its name, evergreens, different types of spruces. This is a downhill race that's on pavement through a small community. And this was a 5K. And back at that time in 2018, I finally broke my goal, which is to break the 16-minute barrier in the 5K. It took a couple of years to hit this, but it was such a feat. I'm like, oh my God, this is one for the record book. So it's fun town and fun race.
16 minutes for a 5K.
Yep, just under. 2 minutes under, or 2 seconds under, 15:58.
I'm just looking at producer Ken because my last 5K was not 16 minutes.
Yeah, my record's like 21:30.
We need all of the tricks, Bryon. You have to teach producer Ken and I how to increase our speeds.
I'm ready to create a training plan. I'm ready for that.
Well, that is awesome. That sounds like a fun, it's fun to go through those little towns and do those races. It's a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Especially those, it's like, no matter where you are, those towns that aren't explored very often, those niche areas, that's like, wow, look at all the scenery.
Yeah.
It just so much exploring. Just that's a town to definitely look up. Evergreen, Colorado, just a beautiful mountain town.
All right, we're going to have to look it up. All right, producer Ken, your turn. What's your favorite race?
Oh, probably my favorite one that I've done so far is actually a half Ironman race up in the Muskoka area, up in Huntsville, Ontario. Did it last year. Unfortunately, had to drop out this year due to a crazy poison ivy outbreak. Being on steroids is usually frowned upon in any type of event, even if they're medical.
Yeah, that was fun. That's another one of those little beautiful towns, Bryon, is Huntsville, Ontario. It's just very cool there. So
Yeah, that one's a good time, and 70.3 miles is a lot of miles. Still a fun race.
I think the only way I can catch up with that is by car. There is no way for an Ironman, or if I go with a high-powered bike. But I'm definitely going to look up that city.
all right, well, mine is the Buffalo Bills 50-yard finish every year. It's in the fall, representing the Bills today, and that is actually, it's my favorite race. The finish line is on the 50-yard line of the field, and it's so much fun. Just great vibes. Definitely
anything sports themed. That's great. No, that's a race I'll have to add to. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, I did.
Registration's open.
Yeah, come see us in October, Bryon.
When in October is it?
Oh wait, September 27th, I think. Yeah.
Oh, so it's coming up here soon.
Yeah.
I'll have to take a look at that.
It's fun. I know you're a Jets fan. We don't need to talk about that today, but
So is it Super Bowl or bust for the Jets? I have no idea. If we can at least just get our foot into the playoffs, I think I'm going to just be satisfied with that. It's so much better than how we did last year.
Well, we'll look to the Bills to take Aaron Rodgers out yet again this year. We got it. Don't worry.
I was just going to say Aaron Rodgers has to last longer than 2 snaps against the Bills.
One quarter, we call it success.
No.
We're good.
Oh, goodness. All right. Well, I could talk with the Bills all day long. Let's, though, Bryon, so sports is definitely, something that I think we all have in common. But one thing, last time you were here, we were very focused on your IT professional career, so your IT project management career and the teaching that you were doing at a community college. But we didn't really get into your running too much. But you actually have a whole running career as well as the IT sector, correct?
Yes. It's funny because when I look back on it, it goes, oh my God, all these years I've still been doing this. It's funny because all this started back in 2006 and 2007 because I was a soccer player. Many people don't know that I was a soccer player before I converted to running. And the reason I bring this up is that at that time, we qualified for a youth international soccer tournament. And we traveled to Gothenburg, Sweden, and also went out to Germany and also played a cup in Holland. That was such a really unique experience, just one of only a few USA teams to qualify for this global tournament. We played teams from Brazil, Germany, we talked about Sweden, all these European teams as well. It was such a really cool experience, and I was a midfielder and a defender. At that time, I'm like, boy, I feel like I've reached the mountain. Kind of like how Peyton Manning retired at the right time with the Broncos. I kind of felt the same way back at the time, going, boy, this is a great way to end my soccer career because I don't know how else I'm going to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd done soccer in high school. So at that time, I'm like, wow, there's some talent with all this sprinting because I was easily catching players that were much bigger than me, hunting down the ball and taking the ball and trying to run down the other way. I'm like, I want to try this because in the mile time trials, I was always in first. But I never knew what this talent would lead to. So in 2007, I began my cross-country career at the high school level and did really well, found some success. And then in track and field in my second year at high school, I qualified for our state championships in the 2-mile, the 3,200. So I'm like, wow, let's continue this through college. In college, I started a club called Ram Runners, which was one of the first non-NCAA clubs started at CSU. So it wasn't at the D1 level, but we got to train with D1 athletes and create a club atmosphere. We train on the same track. And that's actually how I qualified for Boston. Had no idea I'd go into marathoning. In 2012, I ran the Boston Marathon just for the first time ever qualifying. You take one marathon that you have to qualify under a certain time restriction, and then I ran in Boston. And my first time ever for my marathon was 2 hours and 57 minutes. So I was under 3 hours for my first marathon. I was like, wow, there's so much talent I haven't explored. And then in my working career, actually, ironically, when Emily and I first met, I was primarily doing 5Ks, 10Ks, and half marathons. And in the last 2 years, I've gotten back and engaged in track and field, and I've had a lot of fun. A lot of competitive athletes across the U.S. that I've met, raced against some of the best here and also in Canada. It's been a blast. So it's amazing how 17 years later, I'm still running. And it's just been, the competition's been fun.
Yeah. And it's interesting how you went for the, because I remember us speaking in the past how you said that your wife is more of that distance runner. So it's fun to see how you've come back to like what you love, which sounds like it's the shorter distances and speed work almost.
Yes, it's funny because so she's all the way at the marathon distance, and it's amazing the times that she's hitting. These are times I can only dream of. Coming back all the way down to the mile, I know some people are like, "Wow, Bryon, just the mile? What else are you training for?" And there's so much more for the mile. Every single component into that short sprint. Well, it's not like the 100-meter dash, but you've got to be more flexible. We're focusing more on core strength. As you are in the longer distance like the marathon, but in the mile, you have very little room for error to make up for any mistakes you've made after the first lap. So it's funny. Like I said, we're on very opposite ends of the spectrum, and it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, that would be a lot of fun. Have you ever had any like sponsorships or anything like that in your running career?
Actually, it's really neat. When I was back at CSU, I had a group that had helped me with the running singlet. So the College of Business at CSU, Colorado State, had helped do some sponsoring of the actual branding of the uniforms. They're no longer there, but they're now the Runner's Roost.
Oh yeah.
But there was a local runner store up there. Even that's been rebranded, but there was a local running store up there that helped do that as well. So those are the two main sponsors that helped us with the uniforms. And then actually this past year, it was Longmont Joint and Spine. It's a clinic here just outside of Boulder, Colorado. They actually helped sponsor me for any chiropractic work or treatment when I was preparing to run late last year into this year with all my competitions. It was a fun trial period for about 6 months, and that was really amazing. So beyond that, because I'm not at that pro level competing for the country, but I'm like that level beneath the competitive, it was really cool to at least have some help for my running. So it was amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting. The other thing I'm curious to hear your thoughts are the parallels between training for a race and your professional career. I mean, it sounds like you, and I say this word a lot, is that pivot. In our careers, we have to pivot. Our training plans, we have to pivot sometimes. So what are some of the parallels that you've seen between training for a race and your professional career?
One of the biggest crossovers I see, it's all about planning, and it's all about being disciplined. So like as a project manager, we're so focused on that nitty-gritty detail of the project schedule, what's my risk and issues, what's my budget, and you're keeping a close eye as to how are all these factors changing. In running, it's exactly the same way. I have my training plan. What are my miles during the week? What's the speed that I'm going at? And then taking a step further, what's the diet that I'm tracking towards? What am I eating throughout the day? What about my hydration? Sometimes you have to, for all of us, what's our stress level? Depending on what happens, we have different stresses throughout the day. Now, of course, you're not going to write down, "Hey, my stress today was." You're not going to track those items. But the thing is, there's so much more in terms of either mental stress or physical stress. Let's say there's like a nagging injury that will play into your training plan as well. But I think for me, my professional career and my running career, there's a lot of patience and perseverance. I've seen runners where if you brute force something, you increase your risk of injury. For example, if let's say you're preparing for a fast mile, you've missed a workout on a Tuesday. I've learned over the years, don't try to force it in throughout the rest of the week. If you miss Tuesday, just leave it. I mean, you're going to have more motivation for your next workout, but if you brute force it later on, it's actually happened to me where I did get injured and it took longer to recover. You just find creative ways to build it back in. So it's all about scheduling, being patient, and the perseverance piece is we all have professional goals as well as our personal goals, whatever sport we do. But if you stay to it and you don't give up, you don't go, oh man, I missed that time goal, or oh man, I missed that top, whatever, top 10 finish. You use that more as motivation to your next race. Because I've met many runners that get down or they get depressed going, man, Bryon, I trained for 8 months, had this marathon goal, and I can't get to it. It's just always revamping and looking at your training. And it's going to come. You have to believe in yourself with that. And I think that's the parallel to our professional work and our running work, just that patience, persistence, and perseverance.
Yeah. Well, one other thing you said there is also very true in that you have to believe in yourself. Because if you do not, like, think about when you made the move from project coordinator to project manager, it took grit, it took time, it took perseverance, but it also took your knowing that you had the capability to do so and that you were deserving of that. And I think the same thing holds true. You know, for me, my race goals are probably a little bit different. I just want to cross the finish line and do it under my own volition. But, you know, I think, and there are some weeks where kind of that's how you feel too at work, where you just got to get to Friday. You just got to cross that finish line. And, you know, I think it's okay to have those weeks and those races.
But that's a healthy goal. Like going back to your racing, if your goal is I want to get across the finish line, that's already 10 times better than a lot of runners that are just like, well, I just want to just jump in, you know, let's just see how it goes. Part of the problem with that mindset is, let's say you didn't train appropriately, or let's say we can always make whatever reasons there are. Mm-hmm. You lose the ability to try to get to that finish line, because if you're not happy with that end result, again, it could be, all right, let me look at the time or look at the placement. They may drop out completely. So I think even having just one goal in mind, hey, I want to finish that race, that's a great goal, because mentally what we've told ourselves travels throughout the body, and it's so underrated in terms of the mental aspect of the race. I don't know if you all have seen the documentary on Netflix that just came out. Have you seen the one called Sprint?
I have not.
It's fantastic. I the amount of reviews that have come out, and I forgot how Netflix rated it. I mean, it whether it's in the top 10 or 20, whatever it was for across the entire globe for most watched on a docuseries, it's amazing, because the mindset of a sprinter. They interviewed a lot of American sprinters, Jamaican sprinters, some European sprinters. The one common theme that I didn't know about for sprinters, at least at that level, is how much the mindset plays in. You step on that track and you go, my mindset is I'm going to win. I don't care what the distraction is. I'm in my lane. I'm looking down, getting into the blocks. It's 100 meters. I'm just focused on myself, focused on winning. Just like for you, Emily, if you're just at that starting line, if you're just thinking, hey, I've got this, I'm going to get across that finish line. Kind of that mental aspect and just that power and bringing that to real life, there's so much more to that. And even like in real life, you have a tough day at work, whatever's happening at your desk, you go, okay, I can get through this. Let me just knock out a few of these items, save the rest for tomorrow, call it a day. It's so underrated.
Yeah, I agree. And it's a lot of times it truly is just trying to get across that finish line, whether it's Friday or the true finish line of a race, and just putting your mindset to it. You know, you can do it. It's there. It's in your reach. You just have to try. So
it's powerful. It's all the power of perspective.
Absolutely. I agree. I'm just going to say, it doesn't hurt when there's a beer at the finish line though, Bryon.
It all depends, I guess, on what type and also how long it's been sitting out there.
Yeah.
People are like, hey, folks.
Oh, gosh. So curious, and we kind of touched upon this a little bit, but, you know, some of the elements that go into training and some of the elements that go into our day-to-day lives, is there anything that one helps to drive the other? You know, so if you've got that training plan and you've got work, and, you know, if I just mentally focus on work and get through the day, I can get to training. So what do you feel like there might be elements of one that bleeds into the other?
The biggest thing for me that's actually changed since post-pandemic, I have to start with a run in the morning. That run helps me stay focused, and it's also a stress relief from whatever's happened from the previous day. And I'll usually run early in the morning before work, and then I'll go right into my work day. In the evening, then I'll start to figure out what I'll do for dinner, you know, and then anything post-evening. before the pandemic, it was funny. I used to do a little bit differently. I used to run after work, and that was just based on my location, just based on access to trails. My goals were a little bit different at that time. But I would say for me, if I can get exercise at least sometime during the day, that helps get my brain ready and aligned for what I'm facing during the day. That's why now I run in the morning. And for me, everyone's going to have a different activity, whether it's music or whether it's art. You have to somehow get yourself, tie that into work, because if all we're doing is just sitting here and we're just engaged at our laptop, I think you just go into the spinning cycle of, oh my God, now let me check at night. That's why for me running is so important, because now I'm focused, I'm relaxed, and I'm ready. It's kind of like it's the metaphorical baton. I'm passing the baton from running over now to my work life, and it helps complement that.
Yeah, it puts structure in your life. Like it's
Yes.
a structure type of component as well, which we all do
Yes.
well. Well, a lot of people do well under structure when they have that kind of day set up for them. So,
But don't forget the days off too. Having a day off, is also just as important. Just to go, okay, if I knew, let's say for one day, like today for Thursday, let's say I'm back to back the whole day for meetings, just that one day off, I just need that. But I make sure that I'm well rested and ready for the next day. Or if, let's say, they're my Jets play your Bills, then the next day I'm more prepared since I know the results.
I know. I don't feel bad for you, Bryon.
I got to find another team.
Come to the Bills.
Actually, it's funny. A little fun fact. It's funny.
Yeah.
It's going a little bit of a tangent. Every team I've either cheered for or that I've been a part of for somewhere like, let's say, high school or college, I had a green in there because my high school mascots were green and white, and then college was green and gold. So somehow now I'm cheering for the Jets, which, they're all green. So maybe if I can get some type of green, some alternative green on the Buffalo Bills uniform, maybe that'll bring me over.
We like our red, white, and blue.
Salute to service jerseys. They're
There you go,
usually
yeah.
green and black.
There you go. There you go.
That's a good call.
The exception's been the Broncos, but boy, they've gone through a tough phase ever since Peyton, rode off into the sunset. So hopefully the Broncos can rebound.
Well, you've got about a month and a half to see what's going to happen. So, yeah.
I'll play quarterback. That'll fix our issues.
There you go. There you go. Did you ever think about going into football? I mean, being a sprinter, I would think that could be a possibility.
You've got to be so strong and just taking on those hits. I was always a very lean and thin kid growing up.
Mm-hmm.
It's only of recent that I've kind of bulked up a little bit of muscle in the past year and a half. The best thing I could do, Emily, would be kicker or punter, and hope to God I don't get hit trying to block.
Well, maybe not give it a try. Well, we talked about the fact that your wife is also a runner, and I do believe she's training for the 2020 Olympics. Is that correct? Hoping to qualify?
That's correct. That's our long-term goal. Yep, training here for Los Angeles 2028.
That's amazing. And what's the medal behind you? Does that have a special significance to Grace?
Yes. So you see the orange medal that's behind me. So what's amazing, and I'm really proud of Grace. So she ran at Grandma's Marathon, which is a big marathon in Duluth, Minnesota. Beautiful course and really well run. I ran it for the first time this year. I did the half marathon, and Grace was second in the entire female category and ran her personal best out there in Duluth in 2 hours and 30 minutes. Her personal best is 2:29, but to come in with the silver medal out there, I was super proud of her, and it just incredible perseverance and patience in going through that race for her for the marathon.
So she did a full marathon in 2 hours and 30 minutes.
Yep.
Okay. I can't even run a half marathon in 2 hours and 30 minutes yet. Yeah, I'm getting there. Well, that's amazing. Well, I'm curious, with just wondering from a female perspective and going out, and I'm sure she's trying to find sponsorship and look at different ways in order to hit that goal of the 28 Olympics. Do you see any challenges that she's facing that you do not think that maybe a male would be facing as they go out and target sponsors?
You know, one of the things that's interesting in terms of challenges, it all comes back to funding from sponsors and also just really from corporations. You've got to be a mid-level to a large level corporation that I'm seeing that's really donating money back to track and field or back to road racing. I think a lot of smaller businesses are still trying to right ship themselves from the pandemic. So the tough thing is determining in the period we're in right now of inflation, what are the true numbers of inflation that are impacting all businesses versus what if it's more of a misnomer that's more of profit that we're trying to generate. So there are definitely challenges that female athletes are experiencing. And actually later in the podcast, I want to get more specifically in terms of what those challenges are. But I think in general for both male and female, they both have had similar challenges in terms of how does that funding come from a corporation or from a private donor coming to the world of athletic pursuits. What's interesting is something I was researching before this podcast is I wanted to look at Nike because we've seen Nike sponsor all these athletes, not just in the U.S., but across Europe and South America and Asia. And what's interesting is I pulled up their 10K form in 2023. And for those that don't know the 10K is a SEC mandatory reporting form that all major companies have to submit in a yearly fashion. I believe it's yearly, bi-yearly or yearly, in a yearly fashion. And what's interesting is their bottom line revenue is $51.2 billion in 2023. And looking at the revenue increase, it was a 16% increase over 2022. So I paused. I thought to myself, well, this is odd. We've had athletes that have lost sponsors because we've claimed that the pandemic has impacted bottom line revenue. Nike is a behemoth in terms in the athletic category. So something's not right. Something doesn't align. One of the issues I started looking through the report is their gross margin. Their gross margin had slightly decreased. And what they state here, and I'm reading this word for word from the report, they quote that it decreased because of higher product costs on wholesale equivalent basis due to higher input costs. So they're looking at supply chain. They've had unfavorable changes in net foreign currency exchange rates and lower off-price margins on wholesale equivalent basis. So they're really looking at supply chain issues that did affect the global economy right after 2021. But what still doesn't make sense to me is with a company that has that much, again, we're talking $51.2 billion. It really comes down to that brand recognition. We all remember Usain Bolt, amazing Jamaican athlete in sprinting, and the way that he brought sprinting kind of back to the forefront. And the Americans did a great job prior to that, but there was a personality that Usain had that no one did. That's why we're seeing like Sha'Carri Richardson from the USA. You look at her personality, it's like you can't get your attention away from it. You're all focused to this one athlete. And I think for athletics, the more noise you can make in the field and generate that publicity, the more the sponsors are getting behind it. Because it doesn't make sense why Nike, with that much in net revenue, you would think they would sponsor more, but also comes down to popularity in the TV market. Team sports, we've talked about football, but look at, soccer, basketball, baseball, comes back to that TV revenue sharing. And we always hear the argument from track and field or road racing that they're not generating enough TV income back to, where it helps athletes. I feel like some of that is a misnomer, and I think if we get more popularity within the sport, we start to see more of that revenue shift and discussion. But I would say, going back to your original question, female athletes have had some specific challenges that I want to address here later on, as opposed to male. Of recent, both have had similar challenges, but there's a specific shift that happened, and we'll get to that. But just fascinating how sponsorships have decreased, and we're looking at the current economy as a reason. But that's not the story we're seeing in these SEC reports in the example of the Nike case study.
Yeah, and I unfortunately didn't read that beforehand, but I will now. I'm going to go out and find that. uh, what's interesting to me though is during the pandemic, so many people started to participate in outdoor activities. So look at bikes. You could not find a bike because everybody went out and purchased bikes. And then we had supply chain issues where we couldn't get the parts over from China and, for other places, obviously. But you would think that we can't use that as an excuse for cutting back on sponsorships, given the fact that people were going outside, they were moving, they were buying new equipment. They didn't have commute anymore, so they could, what they spent in gas, they go buy new sneakers. So that's an interesting statistic and kind of perspective when you look at what was happening in the world during the pandemic.
Well, I think you're right on. And the thing that doesn't make sense is look at consumer spending. Mm-hmm. Now more than ever on super shoes, as an example, Brooks, Asics, going back to Nike, the people are buying these prices for shoes, which are way over $150. I think it's like $250 or $300 at least per shoe.
Yeah.
We've seen these prices rise, and we've seen that corporations said, oh, we're offsetting costs to adjust for supply chain costs or other manufacturing costs or regulatory costs. But it's funny, it's something I want to look at later on, how much of that is true, or is it price gouging to take advantage of revenue lost from post-pandemic? Going back to your point, Emily, it's a good point. There should be no excuse why a lot of these major companies are pulling back on sponsorships. That's where it's being fiscally responsible between how you're paying your employees, how you're also doing your branding initiatives, and then for your athletes, because your athletes are carrying that messaging that you can't measure from a money perspective. Like an example, looking back at Usain Bolt, just his exposure alone, unless you're really tracking how much money he brought in from a TV market, you can't measure how much money he brings back because everyone's looking at the TV going, oh, wow, Usain's wearing those amazing Puma spikes. I got to buy a pair. I haven't heard of a marketing firm that's been able to track that dollar amount. Can you imagine, Emily, if you're the superstar athlete for the Buffalo Bills, like, oh, we got to have Emily and Ken front and center. Can you imagine the exposure on the Buffalo Bills? So one of the other things we're starting to see that's a bit of a misnomer too is by having an athlete, we can't track the revenue they bring in. I think is a little bit of a false herring or red herring, because folks jump in, they see the product, they want to get it, and you just start to see that volume of buys. So I think you're spot on here. I'll be curious to see what happens post the Olympics.
Yeah. Oh, how many little kids see a sports figure that they want to emulate and get their parents to go out and purchase every single thing, right down to the shoe that athlete is wearing? So it's a very interesting conversation when you think about it.
This was right before my time, but Emily, do you and Ken remember the whole effect as it started for Michael Jordan? I had to read about it because that was around basically the time where I was just starting to get into. I mean, I was super young at that point. But do you both remember how much of a phenomenon Michael Jordan was with, Nike
Air
across
Jordan.
the world? Air Jordan, and actually, Air is a fantastic movie, and there's a component of that story in that movie. Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's great. Yep. That is a good movie, and it shows also the changes at Nike. But real quick, Emily, I wanted to go back to more specifically because we talked about sponsorship challenges for both male and female. But I wanted to address one other aspect that you were just talking about, which is specifically for women.
Yeah.
Has there been a shift where it's been harder? I would say prior to Tokyo, the 2020 Olympics, yes, it was so much harder for female athletes to get those sponsorships. That just the male market dominated much of that focus. And you saw only a few high-powered women athletes that really got that exposure. But one thing I wanted to call out is, and it's actually it's amazing. I don't know if do you and Ken know the athlete Allison Felix?
I don't think so.
Ever since she had given birth to her, one of her children,
Mm-hmm.
and she was trying to hide that from Nike because she was afraid Nike was going to cut the sponsorship or reduce somehow the sponsorship. Allison's been at the forefront, raising awareness, saying, "Hey, this is what I had to go through, practicing super early in the morning, had to hide this. You know, can you imagine the fear that women like me had to go through? This is all post Tokyo." And for me, as a running, enthusiast, it's like, oh my God, Allison, you had to go through that, and she's one of our most decorated Olympians here in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
That's not okay at all. And your sponsor is
Right.
Nike. And ever since Allison did that, we've seen more progress made. And just some examples beyond Allison Felix. In Jamaica, Shelly-Ann Fraser-Price, who also has championed that, hey, as a mom,
Yep.
I'm raising my kids, but also bringing more to the forefront. Hey, the power of, being in motherhood. My career doesn't just end, once I have children. Faith Kipyegon in Kenya, the exact same way. She's been a champion, in her country
Mm-hmm.
in terms of empowering women after the birth of her children. And then Viola Cheptu in Kenya, Viola has championed a program called T-Rop's Angels, which that's more about gender-based violence. And between all these ladies that have brought this to the forefront, we're starting to see now more sponsors look towards women going, okay, we need to now take this more seriously and look at these opportunities because now we're creating a global change.
Yep.
Younger women are looking up to these athletes. So we're starting to see the needle slightly move to help women, but more is we need more to be done. Not enough's being done right now. We're shifting more to that angle.
Yeah, I love that. And so, first of all, it's sad that it took a woman hiding her pregnancy because she's afraid she's going to lose a sponsorship. Like that just is not a position anybody should be in. A woman having a child is something to be celebrated and not, having to hide due to financial impact concerns. Like that's just wrong on so many levels that she was put in that position. Is just curious, is Grace trying to get a sponsor for the upcoming Olympics? Has she had to start those conversations?
We're a little early in those, but
Mm-hmm.
yes, ultimately our goal would be for Grace as a major sponsor or two. It would be the dream for Grace.
Yeah.
Because the thing that is so amazing about Grace, of all the athletes that I've met at the pro level, Grace is so humble. She's so approachable. And her story is also very inspiring. And I think there are many pros that I've at least seen where, and everyone has their story,
Mm-hmm.
but I think what just really stuck out to me for Grace is just that she's so approachable and she's willing to share even help for those that just at a social level. Let's say you're just, again, trying to complete your first 5K. Grace has been available and willing to go, hey, if you need some help, I've got some tidbits, or just talking about certain nutrition. I know in pro athletics, for a lot of pro athletes, that's always underneath the rug. It's okay, well, this is my competitive advantage.
Right.
I want to kind of keep that to me. One thing I appreciate about Grace is Grace sees kind of a much larger vision, which is as we see the next generation entering into sports, there's a huge gap in many areas. One, which is values of treating your fellow competitor the right way. Yes, we're intense. That methodology of I'm in the sprint lane, I'm focused here in my lane. That's true to a certain point, but when you're off the track and you've got the next generation trying to learn, they're in the exact same spot. Grace never forgets her humble beginnings, her humble roots. And I think that's a good takeaway for all of us here on the podcast. No matter how far you go up on the corporate chain, no matter how well you do as an entrepreneur or in your athletic pursuits, never forget your humble beginnings, because we all started in the starting blocks all the way back at the beginning.
Yep.
And Grace has not lost that despite the success she's had. So no, our goal is trying to move to more sponsors, see if we can get more of that brand and help as she goes for her goal at the Olympics.
Yeah, that's awesome. And, I think even like in STEM, we have a gender gap, right? We have issues with getting women to join STEM, and we need women talking about the issues. So just the fact that Grace is out there talking and helping to coach and helping to guide those that have an interest in it it's so unique and it's so needed. And it's so, just a a really true voice of character, and sometimes it can be a 5-minute conversation. I say that about coaching all the time. That 5-minute conversation that Grace may be having with someone who's about to do their first 5K and is nervous, and she can help squelch that. How amazing does that make everybody feel? And you're a proud husband. You speak about Grace with such pride.
I'm so proud of her with how far she's come. No, thank you, Emily, because also Grace speaks multiple languages. And coming from Kenya, coming to the U.S., there's so much Grace has had to learn. And when we talk about drinking from a fire hose, it's such an understatement because you look at the complex diversity in the United States, the politics, different areas of the country where we have the geopolitical inferences as well. It's amazing how much Grace has learned. And I think even with her degree, what inspires me is here's a professional athlete that is using also her degree and trying to go through her business pursuits, but at the same time is also trying to make her professional career also her main objective. I haven't seen many athletes that do both. And it's, for me, I think when we talk about what gets me out of the captain's chair after a long day at work, it's just seeing what Grace does. It goes, boy, that fires me up to go then for my run, because Grace is trying to make both happen too. So we feed off of that energy. I'm very proud of her. So thank you, Emily.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, this is just such a fascinating conversation. But what's on the horizon for Bryon? What's up next, Bryon? What you got planned?
I'm really excited. So this weekend, it's the Rocky Mountain State Games in a city just north of Colorado Springs. I'll double in the 3,000 meters and the 1,500. So that's this Saturday. We'll see how it goes, but very excited to just jump in there, compete, and give it my all.
All right, that's awesome. All right, Bryon, one tip for me if I'm trying to increase speed on my next run. What you got?
I got a fun one. So if you're going to try to increase speed, go a certain amount. I'm going to make up the numbers here, but you go for a jog. You just start to increase the pace slowly. So we're going to say 5 minutes. I want you to go hard, and that hard is that you could, let's say you're trying to talk to Ken, but you could barely talk to him. Then you pull it back for about 5 minutes. Push again another 5 minutes. Be up the intensity a little bit more, and then you scale it back. Do that about 3 to 5 times where you're increasing your pace, but you're pushing that pace towards, it's not uncomfortable, but it's where you can try to sustain. It's like, oh, I can barely hold on to this, and then you pull back. And you're teaching your body how to adapt with each of those, and we call that speed play. Where I'm pushing the zone, I then pull back, give myself a break. Then I push again, and that gets your body used to going, okay, what is that pace looking like? So it's a good way to give that body that adaptation to push.
All right, I have to do that in my professional career. I usually have to get up and really push myself hard for about 5 minutes, go get some breakfast, come back, drink some more coffee. So many parallels.
Or you pass the baton to Ken. All right, Ken, I've gone through the first half day. Now it's your turn.
Yeah. Well, when we're at races, we'll show up together. He ditches me. Sometimes we get pretty close to back together again, but that's because,
Yeah, this last weekend we met up towards the end again.
We did. Yeah, we did.
Did 2 different courses. They deviated, but they came back together.
Yeah. So it was fun. But
well, good thing Ken, you didn't leave her. It's like, hey, Emily, I'm still waiting. So you were there all ready to support. So that's great. It wasn't like Emily's like, wait a minute, where's the car?
Not yet. Oh, goodness. Well, Bryon, thank you. It's so interesting to me, the parallels between athletics and professional, like IT careers. It's just, head down, focus, believe in yourself, challenge yourself, and go after those goals that you have and dedicate the time to do so. So it's so interesting to me, the parallels.
No, you're spot on where you just can't give up. If there's any theme to that, no matter what it is in life, and it's okay to change direction. We always talk about, hey, like, we never know how our career is going to shape out. We think that there's a path, but it's okay sometimes to go lateral, or take a step back. It's always okay to evaluate that, just like in any sport, like in running. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to shift. Hey, what are the distances I want to do? Like, it's okay if you go, hey, I'm so tired of this long distance. I really want to try something short, or vice versa. You have to mix it up, and you have to have a little bit of fun with it. Even in our working careers in IT, you have to have a little bit of fun with it and think about some of those challenges, because otherwise, if we don't view it that way, glass half empty is way too easy. It has to be glass half full. Otherwise, it gets to be really mundane. And with running, you can't force it. Running's like the proverbial treadmill. I'm always trying to get to a certain goal.
Yep. Yep. Oh my goodness. Well, Bryon, thank you for coming back on the podcast tonight.
This was fun. No, thank you for the invite. And this was great to catch up and really talk about not only just running, but focusing again on also like the state of athletics for pros, on where we are from a sponsor perspective. And again, the needle is slowly moving, but more has to be done. And the trailblazers that have already started that path, this is a conversation that has to continue, because as we keep trying to blaze that trail, more of this conversation needed, or else the grass just grows right back over that same trail.
Yeah. I mean, and again, look at the parallel between women sponsorships and women in STEM needing to get traction, needing to talk about the issues, get attention, keep talking, because if we don't, there's not going to be a change. So
exactly. Yep. It just goes back to where it was.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Bryon. I appreciate you being here tonight. Okay, we're going to do one last well, not really. Is it a close breaker? What's the opposite of an icebreaker?
Yes, you can do a closing statement, closing round table.
There we go. Yeah.
Closing bell.
So the last time we did Jets versus Bills score for their first game together. So I want to do that again. So Bryon, what do you think? Bills versus Jets, their first meetup of the season. What do you think the score is going to be?
Oh man, this is hard, because the Jets' first game goes out to San Francisco on Monday night, which I know that's going to be an automatic loss. As much as I would hope they'd win. Do you know when on the schedule? Is it like middle of the schedule?
I think it's mid-season this year. Yeah.
And do the Bills come to the Jets?
I think so.
Well, they'll go to both.
Yeah.
It's just I can't remember who
visits
where.
first. Yeah.
So all right, I'm going to go really on a limb here. This ledge is probably crumbling as I say this.
Okay.
I'm going to say that the Jets barely beat the Bills in New York City at home. I'm going to say 24-21.
All right. Producer Ken?
Oh, see, I am trying to contemplate whether or not Aaron Rodgers is going to stay healthy long enough to play the Bills. So I would say 37-21 Buffalo if Aaron Rodgers is healthy. Ooh. I'm thinking it's going to be a shootout.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, I'm going to go 28-17 Bills all the way. JA17. All right, we'll have to play this back after that game wraps.
This will be interesting, because then,
should have put everyone's answers in the show notes here, and then
I can still go back and do that.
To it. Yeah, there we go.
There we go. Put them in the show notes.
And then when the Jets go to the Bills, then we'll find out, because I think my answer is going to be different then, but we'll wait till that game.
Well, again, Bryon, thank you so much for being on the podcast. This is a fun conversation. Again, so many parallels where there's still gender gaps that are occurring, sponsorships and STEM, and just there's so much that needs to be talked about. So thank you for coming on and helping to raise awareness to this. Really appreciate it, and really appreciate your time tonight.
No, great. No, thank you, Emily. Thank you, Ken, for having me back. And let's see what happens here as we get towards another Jets game, Bills game, and then also let's go back and let's also see where we stand on this whole topic when we get towards the end of the year.
Yeah.
We'll see.
I agree. And producer Ken, thanks for being here tonight.
You got it.
All right. And as always, I'd like to thank Go Art here in Batavia. Got pretty cool view of the mural and just the podcast studio with this shot. So it's kind of a fun shot to be able to show a little bit more of the studio as well. And we do thank Go Art for the use of this wonderful space. So thank you to the community for that. I hope everybody has a great rest of their week. And Bryon, so great to catch up, and we will talk with you soon.
Sounds good. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.